This week's channel message from the angels is telling us that we are preparing to become citizens of the galaxy, but that in order to do that, we must first come to terms with an energy that is part of the human collective. So, welcome back to my channel, you guys. It is great to have you here, and thank you so much for holding the energy on this message with me, because this is a big one. This is a humbling message. And I'm very, very grateful for our community for to be able to share this together as a collective, as a group, because this is a lot for any one person to have. This message is a lot. Um, so those of you who are new, welcome to the channel. I'm great and really, really grateful to have you here. So my name is Ann Tucker. I'm a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm, and I do that by raising my awareness up as high as I can go. I go a little higher, I connect, and then energies and healing come through, and I share them here with you guys on YouTube. And as I was saying, this message is almost a follow-on to the message we had last week about ETs, where they were talking about talking about them. This message is about saying that this upcoming year, specifically this year that we are in right now, they say we are preparing ourselves to become galactic citizens. But they say that there is an energy in humanity that they say is not natural to us, that was not divinely given, that was imposed on us by external energies. And this energy has been keeping us in the state of separation and destabilization, specifically war. And that the energy is held in every human body, it's held in the collective. And they're calling on us as light workers. And I mean by light workers, I mean everybody who is here who wants to help, everybody here who is on a spiritual path. That's you, because you're listening to this. To all of us, are saying no matter how bright and shiny of a star of a being you are, no matter how open your heart, this energy exists in you because it's part of embodying as a human, that it comes with the human package. So we all have it. And they're really asking us, they're saying this energy is going to be coming to the forefront, and we need to encounter it. We need to talk about it. We need to work with it. We need to let it go. So, and this is like a necessary part of us becoming part of this greater understanding of what's out there in the greater world, in the universe. So it's an amazing message, and I think you guys are going to love it. And like I said, I'm grateful that we're all holding it together, because it needs all of us to do this in order to make a difference. So I also wanted to mention that I'm going to be live tomorrow, Saturday, for those of you who are catching us, depending on what time zone you're in, but Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is my tomorrow Pacific time, 10 a.m. I'll be live here on YouTube, and I'm going to be sharing. I just finished my program, Soul Convergence. We just finished it Tuesday. And it's been an amazing journey, and we learned so much, and the healing journeys have just been incredible. And I think there was so much to learn from that. And so I wanted to bring onto YouTube tomorrow. So in that program, I have several people helping me that are dream analysts that help in terms of helping people to understand the process that they're going through, to analyze their dreams and to see the healing being reflected in their dreams. So there'll be 5 of us talking about it and sharing some of the specific stories of what happened. So I think you'll be fascinated. It'll be a fun discussion, and I think a really eye-opening discussion of what the healing journey looks like, for specific people. So anyways, I hope you can join me. I will be live here on YouTube and would love to talk about it and share it with you guys. So, all right, you guys, I hope you enjoy the message. All right, so if you guys are ready, all right, let's go ahead and dig in. Here is what they say. We are an assemblage of beings. All are within the galaxy of this truth, and you are with us. You are one with us, and we are all together in a unified field of understanding. We share this now to your truth, to the oneness that you become. The breaking dawn of this new year heralds in a condition of the human mind, and a new condition of the human mind and comprehension. An understanding of who you are as held in an assembly of nations and peoples that extend far beyond the reaches of this plane. As you prepare for the unveiling of the farthest reaches of your own understanding, we ask you now to envelop yourself in candor, in frankness, in the willingness to be revealed as you are, to come to terms with what is the human condition. As of now, it should be held as truth and be known that humanity has evolved slowly. The condition of yourselves has evolved to show your knowing of yourself alone. The encumbrance of being separated, isolated, has hindered yourselves from progress. You have made it known within the embroiled state of solitude that you are a mighty force. A reckoning of encounter is occurring between yourselves as we speak. There are great forces at play and willful display of power. These energies that you hold to berate and undermine the energies of others on the grand scale is limiting the prospect of your harmony between nations and yourselves. The energy of fighting and display, of powerful remedies to each other's encounters. These aspects of who you are must be candidly known, must be brought forward now, must be talked about, not enshrouded in the niceties of behavioral confusion. But to see now that within the foils of humanity's endowment, there has been this will to betray, to display force, to work upon the matters of your own heart and not the all and every. This is known. We do not confound you now with this dialogue, but we would say to you, who are such a blessing to this earth, who can create within their heart an endowment of the divine spirit, to share their light, who have come in this time to dissolve these barriers between yourselves, this candid reply to your own self is an endowment as well. Feel within humanity that this false start must be remedied, must be brought to terms with itself, must see within itself the heart of an angry child who would fight its own war to its detriment. Feel this child is alive and speaking in your world, crying loud. Know it exists. In wonder, it appreciates what is its own heart, but cannot yet bind to the family of the all. We wish through this encounter of what must be unveiled, the greatness of humanity's concerns can be washed and renewed. The great light of starlight, of presence, of divinity that comes to enfold you soon will draw into focus this template and meaning. The anger that protrudes from the energies where softening begins to take place. These must be brought forward and circulated and contemplated and drawn into the context of meaning. These must be brought into the template of growth for humanity to purge in all ways what has been forcible war amongst each other. It must first be drawn in to the countenance of peaceful self-understanding. There is amongst yourself the query in question of how am I to make a difference in these displays, which go far beyond me and my own truth. We speak to the heart of the human, of all beings embodied in the nature of the human form. There exists internally a breath of union that must unfold. But within each spacious heart, there still stands the unevolved tyrant, and this must be understood. Draw this into contemplation, into presence, into unity with itself. Draw this forward within you. Perceive it now as anger and hatred. Perceive it now as the distance that forms between persons. See it now as a placement of the possessive and the demonstration of will. Perceive this now not as glorious, but as the instrument used to divide humanity. Draw from your form into the tangible to hold it now as an object that has been used to perpetuate division amongst you. See it now not as organic, not as a tool you were born with, but as one imposed upon your mental focus from the external, as something of hardship, an endeavor to separate you from us and all that is divine within you. It is anger, rage, demonstration of force, rigidity, the template of war. It is what harbors within it the dialogue of disconnection, destabilization. As one who is within this realm, who holds the endowment of the physical, who becomes into human form for this time of unveiling, we wish for you to draw into presence and reality this awareness of soul and self. As humanity has harbored in its own biology this hardship, it must be encountered in depth and in truth, in candor for what is within you, in your heart, what is made into flesh and to form. Hold this part of your own biology not as hazard, but as an endowment given that is counter-purpose. Hold this in dialogue with the self, to recognize it as something not of grace, but what has been a crushing obstacle to your union. We draw your awareness to this, that within each person it exists. It must be held like a child who is angry, who is drawn into the form of warlike behavior, who feels itself vindicated in the gesture of hatred. We draw your focus to this, though unpleasant. We make it felt for the moment and console yourselves that through this rapid deployment of energies to the energetic expulsion of what is now harbored in darkness within the many, you can be free of it in your reality. You can draw this from and within yourselves and hold it as energy, and feel it now as something that must be recognized, be held not with rancor, nor anger and injustice, but seen as an energetic force which was drawn upon yourselves and that can now be rejected in thought form. Thought not of as part of humanity, but as an embrace of the victim, and to let this fall off yourselves as an endowment not worth having. Perceive yourselves now elongating in the measures of your own grace, becoming more fluid, more patient, more able to open yourselves to one another. Perceive in your hearts a readiness to yield to the needs of others. Draw into yourself what is required in hardship to display the form and forge required to make your own way and to share your harmony and endowment with others, to make peace amongst yourselves. The energy of force, of anger, of will, of justification must be played out. Place this now in the space of readiness for what is transpiring. Perceive it now as an expulsion from the body of the human heart. Perceive it now as an energy that must be played out and be exhausted. Let it form in the ether as an endowment let go of. Perceive now a drawn breath and the exhale, and the rigidity of this now moment leaves you. Perceive this as the goal of these times passing, to reject what has been the tight embrace and the rigor of anger and hatred amongst you. Whew. So it's a big one. This is a big message. It really is. And there's a lot in here that I feel like we need to talk through and pull apart. Like I think layers, as always, layers. Yeah, Rebecca says, wow. I know, it really is a wow. Because there's a lot of things they're saying about what's coming between the lines here. And then there's also like they're giving us, I think, a better understanding of one of our roles here as light workers and something that needs to really shift in us. Like that's why I think like this message needs to be called like becoming citizens of the galaxy, like, or, becoming citizens of the galaxy. What do we need to do to become citizens of the galaxy? And it is this idea of we have to bring peace on earth. We have to clear this from ourselves. And the interesting thing is in the middle here, they say that this energy is not a divine energy. It's not something we were graced with. It is something that's been exposed or imposed on our thought forms. So it's almost like there are external energies that are working against us, holding us in this pattern, trying to separate us, trying to keep us divided, trying to create instability, and trying to separate us from our own divinity. So, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know a lot of people have been talking about this, but here the angels are laying it out pretty clearly, saying that this is not an energy that should be ours, but it's become part of the human collective. And they want us to even as light workers, they're saying that even with an enormous heart, even with yourself wide open, you may say, I don't want war. You might feel like this isn't me, like they're not speaking to me. They're saying they're speaking because of the fact that we are in a body, they're speaking to us. They say just by the fact, the very nature that we became human, that we have this in us. And so we need to find it. We have to find it, and we have to treat it like an angry child is what they're saying. And we have to bring it out like a thought form that doesn't serve us and release it to the ether. So it's a, super, super interesting message. So, and I know as we go through it, we'll get more. So let's go into it. Yeah. Saying this cuts to the heart of separation. Yeah. Does it ever? Right? Yeah. So in those, I see Linda, you're listening in from work. Hi. Hi to all your coworkers. So, all right. So let's go into this message and talk about it in more depth. So they say in the beginning, and it was really interesting because I just channeled this morning and I didn't understand it when I channeled it. I didn't know exactly what they were talking about, and then came back and did the thing, and I was like, whoa. It always blows me away when the way that it's like they know they have this much space. They have this much time with us. It's like this limited little window. And it's almost like, I mean, I'm sure they're up there crafting this message. You know what I mean? Like, how can we give them the biggest kapow in this little tiny window? So, I mean, it's just time is limited. You know what I mean? Like, you guys have lives. You can't spend enormous amounts of times. Like, it's, we can't be in constant communication with them. So yeah, but it is. Mary says, kind of a dressing down, very appropriate for me after my school board meeting yesterday as I defended electric buses. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, exactly. Like, right? Like, what are the energies that came up in that meeting? So interesting. So, okay, so let's dig into it. They say we are an assemblage of beings. And I love that they start that way, because the word assemblage, of course, more than one meaning, is a collection or a gathering. And so they're really talking about here, we are an assemblage of beings. They mean us and them and all of the ET, everything off planet, intraplanet, interplanet, everything, like everybody who is in this existence is sharing the same, as they refer to it here, unified field of understanding, that we are all together an assemblage. So an assemblage is a collection, a gathering, but it is also a work of art made by grouping found objects. So I love that they're saying that it is, yes, it's a gathering, a collection, but it's more than that. It's a work of art. We are an assemblage of beings. All are within the galaxy of this truth, and you are with us. So it is like we have one shared truth together with the angels and with all other beings in this galaxy. They say you are one with us, and we are all together a unified field of understanding. So there's a lot in that one sentence. There is a lot. Like, what creates our reality? It is a unified field of understanding. It is like we are all together co-creating a reality because we share a common understanding. And I think there's no accident that they put that right in the beginning here, because part of our unified field of understanding is the reality of war. So they're saying that we have to heal it in ourselves and in the collective, that we have to purge ourselves of this energy in order to become galactic citizens, to take our place, right? So in the unified field of understanding, we are part of, like, this has become part of our reality, but we can change it. So they go on to say, we share this now to your truth, to the oneness that you become. So they're sharing this now to say because we are evolving, because we are shifting, they're sharing this with us now. Yeah. And you're saying it's also calling out the fighting narratives all around things like politics, where, yes, the enormous polarity in our world and the way that we think about our role in that polarity, that where we take sides, where we take angry sides. Right? And they're definitely speaking to that. And so, yeah, so let's dig in to the next paragraph. They say, the breaking dawn of this new year heralds in a new condition of the human mind and comprehension, an understanding of who you are as held in an assembly of nations and peoples that extend far beyond the reaches of this plane. I highlighted that one in pink. Like, that's a biggie. So they're saying the breaking dawn of this new year. So in this new year, we change. There's this new year, this year that we are in right now. We just started a new year. They say that it heralds in a new condition of the human mind and comprehension. So the way we think and understand changes. Does that mean that ETs are coming this year? I don't know, but at least our shift in thinking happens this year. They're saying an understanding of who you are as held in an assembly of nations and peoples that extend far beyond the reaches of this plane. So however it happens, we crack that idea in the collective consciousness where I think it opens, something happens. And I think it's probably this flash of light that's coming because they mention it later, that this is part of our preparation, right? That we start to understand that we are part of this larger collective that's beyond humanity. Yeah. And then they go on to say, and I just think it's exciting that they actually said in this year, things around this topic will change, which is super interesting and exciting to see, like, okay, how does that happen? As you prepare for the unveiling of the farthest reaches of your own understanding, we ask you now to envelop yourself in candor, in frankness, in the willingness to be revealed as you are, to come to terms with what is the human condition. So this is the big thing, the reason for this message. They say, and what we are doing in this year that we are in right now is trying to prepare ourselves to become galactic citizens. And in order to do that, we have to encounter this part of humanity. And since even though, like, on the other side, you may be the most sparkly soul that you can imagine, but when you come into a human body, you get human junk. So we all have this in us. We all have a warring heart inside of us. And they're saying it's not that we asked for it, right? That they're saying it was imposed on us as a thought form. So, which is fascinating. We'll get to that. Super fascinating. But they're saying it's that we have to, this is part of our preparation for what's coming, is to envelop ourselves in candor and in this frankness. In other words, to just be super honest with ourselves and to try our very, very best to find this energy inside of each of us. And that's the goal, is to find it. Like, and you might feel like I said, you might look at this and see, you might feel like deeply in your heart, I do not want war. And maybe you don't. Like, of course not. Nobody does. Most of us don't. Everybody I know doesn't want war. But there may be some aspect of this. It may show up in a different way, right? It may show up and they list it later. So we'll get to that. But it might show up in a way that is sneaky. And so the goal they're saying is wherever it is inside of us, we got to find it. So, and they say, moving on, they say, as of now, it should be held as truth and be known that humanity has evolved slowly. The condition of yourselves has evolved to show your knowing of yourself alone. The encumbrance of being separated, isolated, has hindered yourselves from progress. So what I read from this is they're saying that we have been in this belief system that we are like alone in the universe, and that has made our growth slow. And when this is gone, when we join the greater reality of what's out there, then it will cause us to grow exponentially. That's my understanding of what they're saying, that they're saying that we have been on a relatively slow growth pattern because we've been isolated, which makes sense. If you look on the earth and you find communities of people who have been extremely isolated, that they are in many cases embodying the same culture and behaviors and traditions that they have had for forever, right? That there has been very little change that has happened. And so isolation breeds stagnation. It prevents change. It prevents evolution. And I think that makes sense. This is like everything. It's like what is true for a small thing is true for the big thing. Is that if you think about how we as individuals grow, we don't grow by hiding ourselves in a hole, right? If we don't participate in the greater world, if we don't confront ourselves with other people and with things that make us, upset, and with things that are difficult, and if we don't push ourselves up against the world, we don't grow. So you can have a super peaceful life and just be by yourself and just stay in your home and not go out. And you can be really, really peaceful and feel great. But at the end of your life, you'll cross over and you'll be like, and I didn't grow. I didn't actually do anything to confront myself, to evolve, to change. I'm just the way I was. And so I think that is what they're saying here, is that's where we've been. We've been in this state of being isolated, and we have each other. We bump up against each other, but we are all human here, right? Like, we are not that different from one another at root. We find our differences and we make the most of them. But wait till we encounter something really different from us, and how mind bending that will be. So yeah, so that's how I see that. And I know I told you guys before about my experience of growth, like how, like after my divorce, I didn't date for like 4 years. And I had some healing dreams afterwards for like a year or two. I had other issues I was working on. And then I kind of got finished with those issues. And then I stopped having healing dreams. All my dreams shifted and I was dreaming about other stuff. And I had no healing dreams. And I was like, woohoo, like, I'm good. No more healing. Like, I was like feeling awesome. And then I started dating again, and boom, immediately healing dreams kicked in. And these were the issues that I could not deal with until I put myself in the environment of dating, right? Until I was interacting in that context again. I couldn't encounter, because I can't do it on my own, right? You have to bump up against something in order to face it. And so then I had a whole series of issues I had to heal after that. So it's just, to me, it really rooted in this idea that being solitary means growing slow. And so to me, this is so fascinating on so many levels, because we have talked about how this is this humongous shift in consciousness that we're going through. And yes, there are these flash of lights that are coming, but then that is going to be part of it. But then what happens to the trajectory of humanity when we become a peaceful planet and we open to a galactic influence, and then our minds are blown, right? And we expand in ways we never imagined. Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking about this morning. That's where my mind goes. All right. So let's keep going. So they say, you have made it known within the embroiled state of solitude that you are mighty force. A reckoning of encounter is occurring between yourselves as we speak. There are great forces at play and willful displays of power. So they're talking about, like, right now that we are currently at war, that there's war all over the planet at the moment. They said that you are a mighty force. A reckoning of encounter is occurring between yourselves as we speak. There are great forces at play and willful display of power. So this is like, I mean, you imagine all the different, willful display of power makes me think of, like, after the Nancy Pelosi went to visit Taiwan and China got very, very upset. And they put on a training series of, like, firing stuff and doing a bunch of war exercises all around Taiwan. And it was just like rattling a saber very loudly, and it's threatening. Willful display of power so it's really the great forces at play. So this is like, so this is all the war that's going on around the world. They go on to say, these energies that you hold to berate and undermine the energies of others on the grand scale is limiting the prospect of your harmony between nations and yourselves. So it's an energy and it is to berate and undermine the energies of others. But it's on a grand scale. But if it's not true for the grand scale, then it's true in the small ways as well. And this is where I think we bring it home, is like, you might feel in your heart, like, I would never want war. I'm not a violent person. But then think about, is there any way, and even in the smallest way, is there any way that you berate or undermine the energies of others? Does it ever happen? And I think in our truthful hearts, we have to say that maybe there are times when you feel competitive, for example. Is there somebody out there that you feel that triggers your insecurities? And what does that bring up in you, right? Or have you ever gossiped, right? Have you ever noticed a person walking by wearing an outfit that's not flattering and said something, right? Like, have you ever, there's so many little ways that this shows up in our world, right? Or even has somebody else said it and you laughed along, and we see it among children in spades on the playground, right? We see it, we hear this all the time in schoolyards, but even among adults, it happens. Even among spiritual adults, it happens. And I will tell you that it happens sometimes unconsciously. Like I have had it happen where I saw in my dreams where someone who I thought was a friend was attacking me energetically, and I don't think she was aware of it. I don't think she even knew that she probably had this as an ability, the ability to protect her energies. And she was a person who's a highly competitive, very driven, really had very lofty goals for herself, and was competitive with everybody around her. And that showed up as her actually attacking me energetically. And I saw it in the dream. It showed me. And so it can be ways on multiple levels. It's like anywhere that it's like the two go hand in hand. If we have an insecurity, that insecurity plays it out in this energy of berating and undermining the energies of others. So they're drawing a parallel here between how we hold this energy in our own hearts. Even if the most expansive heart, this energy is in there because we came into a human body. And then that plays out on the great field of war, right? That plays out in the large. These are energies that you hold, right? They say to berate and undermine the energies of others. And then they say on the grand scale. It is limiting the prospect of your harmony between nations and yourselves. So it limits harmony in terms of like between different nations and all these great forces that are fighting, but then also between us in our relationships with one another, right? The energy of fighting and display. And so think about that, of display of power. So that's another area where this can come up. Like think about like in terms of how you present yourself in the world. Like is there a desire to be seen in a particular way, to be seen as successful, to be seen as whatever, strong or healthy or, rich or whatever it is, like wherever that insecurity sits, right? There's going to be the display or the desire, the energy of fighting and display, which is contrast. So they're trying to bring our awareness. They're saying we have to see this in ourselves. Even if we feel like it's not, like I said, that war, maybe not, but all these other little things, maybe. And they're asking us to be really candid with ourselves, not to be self-critical, not to be angry at ourselves or find fault in ourselves, but to see these energies as something that is true, to see them in there so that we can become aware of them and recognize, this is what's interesting as we go, that these are an external energy that's been put on us, that these are not divine energies. So interesting. So let's keep going. So, where is it? Okay, is limiting the prospect. Okay, of powerful remedies to each other's. See, the energy of fighting and display of powerful remedies to each other's encounters. So, powerful energy and remedies would be like trying to fix things through force. These aspects of who you are must be candidly known, must be brought forward now, must be talked about, not enshrouded in the niceties of behavioral confusion. Gosh, they just pack it in. So yeah, they have to be candidly known, must be brought forward now, must be talked about. So they want us to discuss this, to admit it to ourselves and to others, like where we have these pitfalls in ourselves, and to recognize every wound we have comes from a life experience. Every wound we have is valid, right? You have a wound because you were hurt, and that hurt is real. But then it evolves into, and it feeds this energy that we all hold. This energy of fight and display, right? And then they say it must be talked about, not enshrouded in the niceties of behavioral confusion. And I see that as behavioral confusion is when we take something and we dress it up as something else that sounds better. So like rather than saying, I feel rage at this because I'm scared for myself, instead say I'm defending all this other underserved group. So rather than saying I feel hurt by this, I'm gonna pretend I'm actually being strong to help someone else, right? It's where we deflect, where we take what is an actual thing and we call it something else. Behavioral confusion, where we dress it up in pretty clothing, lipstick on a pig, as they say, right? To make it sound like it's a good thing. Right? We take this energy that we have of separation, and we dress it up in pretty clothes and we call it something good, like patriotism, right? We call it something that sounds good, when in fact what it is separation. Yeah. Not enshrouded in the niceties of behavioral confusion. So, gosh, you guys, this is a hard one. You know, as we dig into it, it's hard. Like I feel the ouch in this one. Like I feel it, you know, and it's hard. It's hard to think. Like I'm just going through my life going like, oh my gosh, how can I feel like this is woven through my whole life. Like, how do I pick it out? Like, woof. Okay, let's keep going. But to see now that within the foils of humanity's endowment, there has been this will to betray, to display force, to work upon the matters of your own heart and not the all and every. And then they say, this is known. We do not confound you now with this dialogue. So they said, we know this about ourselves. We have this awareness that we know the foils are like and I like that they chose that word, but to see now that within the foils of humanity's endowment. So the endowment are like, what are the qualities we were given? Like what makes a human? That's our endowment. It's our character, our beingness. What is humanity? That's our endowment. And within that endowment, there are foils, which are like our weaknesses, our faults. And foil, the word foil has two meanings, which is defeats, right? Our defeats, our faults, but also it's a sword that's used for fencing. So I think it's interesting that they chose that word here as we're talking about war and warlike behavior, that within the foils of humanity's endowment. Yeah. So, and Linda says, this hits home with me. Desire to be seen as successful. It comes out in negative energy. This has been what I'm working on. It's humbling. My gosh, that humbling is the word of the day. I feel this too. I feel this is a very humbling message for me too. Like and let's just all hold that. That's all like, oh, you know what I mean? Oh, here I am. I see myself. Like, yeah, it's a heavy one. This really is. So thank you for naming it. You are right, man. Yeah. So, all right. So then they go on to say, so this has been one of our faults is there has been this will to betray, right? To display force, to work upon the matters of your own heart and not the all and every. This is known. We do not confound you confound, you now with this dialogue, but we would say for you, and they're speaking specifically to you, who are such a blessing to this earth, who can create within their heart an endowment of the divine spirit to share their light, who have come in this time to dissolve these barriers between yourselves. This candid reply to your own self is an endowment as well. So they're really speaking to you as light workers. And by light workers, you know, my definition of light workers is those who choose to serve. And you may have chosen before you got here. You may have chosen once you got here, but you are here and you are listening to this and you are on a spiritual path. And that makes you a light worker in my definition. And I feel like they are speaking to us and they're saying that by having that mentality, that desire to be of service, to be a light on earth, right? You who are such a blessing to this earth, who can create within their heart an endowment of the divine spirit, that by being open, by being willing to receive that energy, by being the light that you are, right? You are gifting that to the earth to share their light. That's you who have come to this in this time to dissolve these barriers between yourselves. So that's part of the reason we are here, which is awesome, right? Part of it is to bring world peace. And they say to dissolve these barriers between yourselves. So that's world peace, but it's also peace among people, individually, relationships, right? On the small level and on the grand scale. This candid reply to your own self is an endowment as well. So it's saying part of that gift is the willingness to encounter this part of ourselves. It's part of the work that we are doing. They go on to say, feel within humanity that this false start must be remedied, must be brought to terms with itself. So it's so interesting that they're calling it a false start, that they're not saying that this is just like part of what it is to be human. Like there's energy, and they talk about it later down here, and they just mention it almost like a throwaway comment. And to me, it is fascinating. I'm like, go back to that, please. Because they are talking about, and I do think we talk about like evil in the world and dark energy and all this kind of stuff. And there is, I believe that this energy is being used against us to keep us in disharmony, to keep us in separation. So the goal is to find it in ourselves and root it out, right? And it is like almost like a contraption that's been put, like a thought form that has been put into the collective consciousness of humanity. We have to call it out, right? So a false start, this is not something that we are meant to be or meant to have, right? It must be remedied, must be brought to terms with itself. And by the way, did I mention in that last part, they were talking about the flash of light. Did I mention that? Where is it up here? I know I meant to say that. Hopefully I did. Anyways, they are talking also about the flash of light coming. So it's both. It's the flash of light that is going to raise our consciousness, that's going to do part of this work for us. But in the process of doing, and we could get that, like they have said that there's something heavy in the spring. And I don't know what it is, but it could be this flash of light. There's energy in the springtime, a lot of energy. Something big's going to happen in the spring. And so it could be this flash of light, right? So if that happens, then at least the first of 3, they said. But if that happens, that could be a big part of what then starts to bring this energy up. And they talk about it here. So let's keep going. I get ahead of myself. And then Mike says, the two-edged sword, the tongue is a mighty weapon, is the thought that comes to mind. Oh my gosh, Mike, you are so right. Yes, absolutely. Like the harm that we do with our words, that we might not be warring people, but what do we say? Like, do we cause hurt with our words? Yeah. Yeah. Or our thoughts even, like I was talking about unknowingly. I have friends that unknowingly were hurting me with thoughts. Yeah. And so, yeah, you just don't know. And so anyways, so let's keep going. They say, feel within humanity that this false start must be remedied, must be brought to terms with itself, must see within itself the heart of an angry child who would fight its own war to its detriment. And I really like that they put this in the terms of a child, because they're not saying that we need to look at this and call it bad and criticize it and judge it, because we're not supposed to do that towards ourselves. Like everything about us is here because we have lived a truth. And it doesn't matter if the result of that is something incredibly negative, is that it was born out of reality. It was born out of a real experience. So then the goal is then to just encounter it without judgment, to acknowledge its truth, to say, yes, this evolved into this because of the truth of its experience. Every part of us, right, has to be included and given presence to and loved. And so what do you do with an angry child? You love an angry child, right? You must see within itself the heart of an angry child who would fight its own war to its detriment. So cut off its nose despite its face, which is just exactly what war is, right? We end up killing people because of war. And it's to our own detriment. We go on to say, feel this child is alive and is speaking in your world, crying loud. Know it exists. In wonder, it appreciates what is its own heart, but cannot yet bind to the family of the all. So in wonder, I love that, because you hear of wonder in terms of, like, in biblical terms of wonder and like awe and like appreciating the divine. So they're saying that this crying child is not cut off from the divine, that it is in wonder, that it sees divinity around it. But it's only listening to its own heart and to what it needs. It's separated. So this again is a parallel to where humanity is today, that we're separated from the rest of the galaxy, that we are alone. And so even though we are in wonder, like, we see the divine, but we appreciate only our own heart, right? And we cannot yet bind to the family of the all. So this is the symptom at the individual level, at the level of nations, and at the level of humanity to the rest of the galaxy. Yeah. Whew. And then we go on to say, we wish through this encounter of what must be unveiled, the greatness of humanity's concerns can be washed and renewed. The great light of starlight, of presence, of divinity that comes to enfold you soon will draw into focus this template and meaning. So this is, to me, like the bright, like, hope. Like this is oh yes, please help us here. They're saying that this is, I think they're referring to the flash of light right here. So we wish through this encounter of what must be unveiled, so in other words, bumping up into this part of ourselves and of humanity, the greatness of humanity's concerns can be washed and renewed. So they're saying going to be a lot of this work will be accomplished by the great light of starlight, of presence, of divinity that comes to enfold you soon. So they're saying that we're going to get a huge help in this work by the flash of light that is coming. Yes, because I feel we need it, because this is not an easy task. This is deep, deep work. And so, but they're saying that the flash of light will help. And they say, they're saying that the flash of light that comes, that enfolds you soon, will draw into focus this template and meaning. So it will bring this up to be seen in ourselves. They say the anger that protrudes from the energies where softening begins to take place. And boy, do I love that phrase. The anger that protrudes from the energies where softening begins to take place. And it's almost like, imagine that that you're trying to squeeze. I used to have this crazy toy when I was a kid that was like you squeezed it and the eyes would pop out. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It's like this weird rubber toy and you'd squeeze it and like different things would pop out of it. That's what I think of when I read this, that it is, we're going to be wrapped in this anger of love, right? This energy of love, this energy of harmony. And that as it wraps around this energy, that energy is going to try to pop out. It's going to be like you're squeezing it and it's going to be seeping out underneath the corners and around so they're saying that the anger that protrudes from the energies where softening begins to take place. So as we soften, this anger is going to come up and show its face, is what they're saying. And so, in that process, we have to draw it, we have to talk about it. They've said we have to draw into focus this template and meaning. So we have to bring it up and talk about it and discuss it, see it in ourselves, see it in our communal understanding, in our culture, in everything. And then say, these must be brought forward and circulated and contemplated and drawn into the context of meaning. So this is part of the work. So those of you who are artists out there, like that's part of your job, is to create meaning out of this kind of stuff, of the stuff of trying to understand a time, a place, a culture, right? Like those of you who are writers, like this is the job, right? To put things into meaning, right? In terms of just conversation, those of you who are counselors, who are therapists, who can help us to understand these energies inside of ourselves. Like this is part of the work we can do. Right? So these must be brought forward and circulated. So shared, understood, brought into the template, right? They said, drawn into the context of meaning. So given an understanding of why, where it came from, making sense out of it, right? These must be brought into the template of growth for humanity to purge in all ways what has been forcible war amongst each other. It must first be drawn into the countenance of peaceful self-understanding. So we start with ourselves. Right? It must first be drawn into the countenance of peaceful self-understanding. So understand ourselves, and then that then works outward to the collective. Yeah. Yeah, and you guys are saying it's very helpful to heart center and enter a state of unconditional love before immersing yourself into self-candor and being sincerely honest with yourself. Yeah, love can love anyone and anything, but sometimes a personality ego cannot. Yeah, for sure. You say nonviolent communication is a great way to be conscious of feelings and needs that hide behind divisive and angry words. Yeah. And Mike says the angered child, now an adult, has the tongue which to destroy themselves. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow, you guys. Okay. Okay. Going on to the next one. I feel this is like this message is sitting heavy with me too. So I feel it as we're reading it through. Next paragraph, they say, there is amongst yourself the query in question of how am I to make a difference in these displays which go far beyond me and my own truth. So in other words, you might not feel like you want war at all, and most of us don't. And then they say, but we speak to the heart of the human. So it's in humanity, right? In the collective of all beings embodied in the nature of the human form. So just by taking human form, this came into your reality. This became part of you by simply being in a human body, right? Because it's part of the collective consciousness. There exists internally a breath of union that must unfold. But within each spacious heart, there still stands the unevolved tyrant. And this must be understood. So they're saying that we all have ready this breath, this desire to be unified. Like we're just, and that idea that exists there, like the opportunity, the possibility of oneness is like right there. It exists inside of us, this internal breath of union that has to unfold. Like it's right there, right? They're saying that we can get it. But first, we have to understand the unevolved tyrant inside of us within each spacious heart. So they're really saying, yep, you may have the most open heart on the planet. And yet, because you are in a human body, this is there. Yeah. So it has nothing to do with the work we've done. It has everything to do with the fact that we are part of humanity. Yeah. And Teresa says, I've been here and got here a few minutes late, and whew, I'm feeling this one. Holy cow, I am too. Yes, thank you, Teresa. Yeah. They go on to say, draw this into contemplation, into presence, into unity with itself. Draw this forward within you. Perceive it now as anger and hatred. Perceive it now as the distance that forms between persons. See it now as a placement of the possessive and the demonstration of will, right? Wow. So these are, think about that, anger and hatred. So anywhere that we find that we feel those emotions rising and noticing that in ourselves, anywhere that we find distance that forms between people. So whenever we say that's me and that's them, and I'm not like them, or they're not like me, or their problems aren't my problems, or whatever it is, where we separate ourselves from each other. Or even like, I can't forgive that person, right? That's distance. How do we create distance between us and others? Then they say, see it now as a placement of the possessive. So this is mine, right? Possessive is mine, my, me. That's the possessive. So like, where do we start to draw lines between like, this is my boundary and don't step over. This is for me. And then, you take yours and go over there, is separation. So that's this placement of the possessive and the demonstration of will. So this is where this is that rattling of the sabers. This is that saying like, don't step on my lawn, whatever that line was, Clint Eastwood's line, like, get off my lawn, demonstration of will. And this doesn't mean that we should let people walk all over us. That is not what they're saying. There's almost like stages of evolution that we have to go through as humanity, right? And if the first stage is one where we have someone who is a tyrant, and then we have the people that are repressed, we have to get to a stage where there are people who are repressed stand up and say, you can't do that to me anymore, right? Where they do hold, and that's about holding boundaries. And that becomes about understanding themselves and their sovereignty and respecting themselves. So this part of themselves has to grow, right? The part of us, of humanity, that part of yourself that maybe feels stepped on or walked on or not seen. Like, we have to go through the stage of setting boundaries and saying, get off my lawn, right? But then we get to a place where we are whole, where we feel like our boundaries are assumed and they are inviolable. And the angels use that word. Like, there was a period last year, I think, where they used that word like in almost every channeling, they talked about our inviolable. Like, it was this idea that we can't be violated. It was this idea that we are so strong, that we are so full of light, that we are so in our own truth, that we know ourselves so deeply, that we're so close to our own divinity that we cannot be violated. Right? That we glow. It's almost like, how you turn on light in a dark room and the shadows go. It's just light, but we're filled with light. So that's after, right? So we're not going to jump from being stepped on and overgiving and all that kind of stuff to right up here. We have to go through this stage of growth, which is, hey, get off my lawn. And then from get off my lawn, we find ourselves and we hold our truth and we find our divinity and we respect ourselves. We have to respect ourselves first. Then the divinity comes in. We fill ourselves with light. We fill ourselves with our truth, and we become inviolable, and we become that light. And we no longer have to fight, right? We just are. And so from that place, we get to where they're trying to get us here. I have totally lost my place now. Here it is. Okay. The distance that forms, right? The distance that forms the demonstration of will. So that demonstration of will is that place where we are, and I think they're really bringing this up in the sense of this is mine and not yours. Like, this is where we're trying to shut ourselves off from the collective, where we're trying to say your problems are yours and not mine. So there's layers to this, right? So, but I think it's important to understand that journey we have to go through. That when I say that we need to let go of our boundaries, that doesn't mean that we go straight from being in a place of no boundaries to this space of being in our truth. We have to go through the stage of saying, I am sovereign. And then we can let in the light to become this higher state where we no longer have to fight it. We just are. We just are the light. And that light, the beautiful thing about when we achieve that stage of just being the light, it's like the light is like a candle where you can share it forever and it never runs out, right? There is always more light. It grows. You give it to somebody and you just have more. More is more. And that's what we're trying to get to. But we have to grow through this difficulty that we're in right now, this constriction of perception about the concept of struggle and the concept of scarcity, right? That's a big one. Scarcity is a big one that holds us in this paradigm that we're in right now. Perceive this now not as glorious. So in other words, this energy is not from God or from the divine or source. They're saying, but as the instrument used to divide humanity. draw from your own form, draw from your form into the tangible to hold it now as an object that has been used to perpetrate division amongst you. An object, right? Wow, a thought form that's been put upon us. So they're saying this is not who we are to be this way. It's not who we are. This has been used to an instrument, right? An object. So it's something that's been given to humanity, that's been used against humanity. So that's not to say that we didn't evolve from, you know, in terms of what our human shape is, that we didn't evolve from cavemen or cave people or whatever. But that what is our natural evolution, and has this energy been amplified and turned darker? And think about just that in terms of the war that's going on, the secret wars of social media, where we're shown images that polarize us, even just how the algorithm works to show us more anger and more hatred and more and more and more, and how what that does to us, right? So it has been used against us to divide us. Yeah. Joshua says, what flash of light? Ooh, so you got to listen to that one, Joshua. There is a message. I think it was a couple back on the playlist here on YouTube, where they talk about, there's a single flash of light they talk about, and then another message, they say there's going to be three of them, three flashes of light. We may assume it's a solar flare or a similar intergalactic nugget, but if it's something else, i.e. tech related, are we just supposed to love it all and make make positive meaning for ourselves and others? No, it's a light of divinity. So it is specifically they call it an energy solar. So it is, and I don't know if that's like from the central sun or from our sun. I'm not sure where the origin is, but light is light if it's coming from the divine. And it moves across the planet. They say it goes through everyone and everything. It soaks down into the planet, and it creates an enormous shift in consciousness. And the way the angels specifically described it is they said, that is the moment that we will look back on. We will say that is the moment that everything shifted. So that is coming. And I hope in this upcoming year, it would be amazing if it was in this upcoming year. But they said there will be three, and that I believe they will be increasing in intensity as we go. But lots of channeling on that one. So if you look back on the playlist, you will see. Yeah. Kirsten says, create boundaries with the intention of love for self rather than punishing the other. 100%. Yes. Thank you for that. That helps. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So then they say, see it now, not, so talking about this energy, this energy that's been imposed on humanity. They say, see it now, not as organic, not as a tool you were born with, but as one imposed upon your mental focus from the external. This is so interesting to me. So in other words, when they say born with, they really mean like the birth of humanity as a consciousness. They're saying that this was imposed on us from the external. So from beings that would have wanted to repress us, or from energies that would have wanted to keep us in division and instability, and to keep us malleable or controllable, or whatever you want to say, right? To keep us separated. And not in unity, not connected to our divinity, as something, they're going to say, as something of hardship, and endeavor to separate you from all that is from us and all that is divine within you. Yeah. So that was the goal, to separate us from the divine. Wow. Right. It is anger, rage, demonstration of force, rigidity. Now there's an interesting one to add, rigidity. So think about that. If there are any areas where you feel particularly rigid, where you feel like things have to be a particular way, that if they're, like following the rules, or it has to be, even like a hyper sensitivity to, germs, right? Like that would be a form of like, oh, I can't touch and I just bring this up because I had this conversation with someone recently, like you can't touch the elevator button because I'll get cooties or COVID. But you know what I'm saying is that there's a feeling in that of like, rigidity. What does it feel like in the body, regardless of how it's expressed? The emotion is what matters, where you feel rigid, where you feel like things have to be this way and not that way, black and white thinking, that leads to this behavior as well, to this energy. It feeds this energy, right? Anger, rage, demonstration of force, rigidity, the template of war. It is what harbors within it the dialogue of disconnection, destabilization. So interesting, you guys. So this was the goal from those energies that imposed this upon humanity, was to create disconnection from ourselves and from source, and destabilization, right? Wow, wow, wow. So, yeah. And then Martha says, thank you. And you are very, very welcome. And thank you for holding this with me, because like I said, this is a tough one. This is a tough message. I feel a lot of humbling energy in this. So humbling for me, I feel like it definitely makes us look at ourselves. And then Mike says the nucleus of the cell soul. And Linda says this has been the work I've been doing and creating through the community of Bloom Beautiful, which was born out of my awareness as a paradox between what I'm saying or the energy I'm putting out versus what I believe I'm doing. Wow. Yeah. And I have been saying I hate a lot without even realizing it until a friend brought it to awareness. Isn't that amazing? That's beautiful that you're naming that, Linda. That's great, because that's exactly right. What is our language? Like to try, even as the thing, if you come away from this and say, okay, the action step is to eliminate the word hate from your dialogue and to not say it anymore about anything, right? To hate nothing, right? And just to maybe like it less, right? And yeah, that is beautiful. So then they say, as one who is, where are we? As one who is within this realm, who holds the endowment of the physical, who becomes into human form for this time of unveiling, we wish for you to draw into presence and reality this awareness of soul and self. As humanity has harbored in its own biology this hardship, it must be encountered in depth and in truth, in candor for what is within you, in your heart, what is made into flesh and to form. So they're really talking about the fact that you may be the brightest, like I said, the brightest, shiniest soul, that you may have so much love in you. Your heart may be so open wide as you come into this world. But when we come into, as they say, the endowment of the physical, when we come into physical form, at this time of unveiling, we're here to be here. We're here in physical form. But they say they want us to draw this into presence and reality, to recognize it's inside of us, right? This awareness of soul and self, as humanity has harbored in its own biology. So it's in the body. So it doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter what our soul says or feels. The body has this energy. And it's connected to the collective consciousness. It's in our biology, right? This hardship, it must be encountered in depth and in truth, in candor for what is within you, in your heart, what is made into flesh and to form. And so because it's, and we bring it into form, right? We bring it into reality in terms of war and all this other stuff. Yeah. Next paragraph, they say, hold this part of your own biology, not as hazard, but as an endowment given that is counter purpose, right? So they say, don't be afraid of it, but recognize that it was given to us against our own greater good. So they keep emphasizing this. It came from the outside. It was given, it was done to humanity, right? It was counter purpose. So it does not align with our greater good. Hold this in dialogue with the self, to recognize it as something not of grace, but what it has been, a crushing obstacle to your union. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. We draw into awareness, we draw your awareness to this, that within each person it exists. It must be held like a child who is angry, who is drawn into the form of warlike behavior, who feels itself vindicated in the gesture of hatred. So we draw your focus to this, though unpleasant. So I think that is it, is where do we feel that we are right for being angry or right for being hateful? Like anywhere that sits, that is the angry child inside of us. That is this energy that's affecting us, that's influencing us, right? And you think about that, like where do you feel a surge of rage? If there's any kind of behavior that really activates you, that's activating this energy. We make it felt for the moment and console yourselves that though through this rapid deployment of energies to the energetic expulsion of what is now harbored in darkness within the many, you can be free of it in your reality. So they're saying this is really going to be coming to the surface in a big way. And so not only are we in war right now, and they've talked about that before, that right now we're in the energy of exhaustion, which is part of this. So they say that we have to exhaust things down to nothingness in order to get rid of it. That if we just deplete something, it'll just build back again. We have to exhaust it. So they're saying so we draw your focus to this, though unpleasant. We make it felt for the moment and console yourselves, right? So that part of it is going to be, if we have this flash of light and it wraps around us and we have this energy inside of it, that energy is going to seep up and out. It's going to be coming through our pores. So it may be a period where it's just leaking out of all the cracks and crevices everywhere, right? And so they're saying that's unpleasant. We know it's unpleasant, but recognize that they want us to, this rapid deployment of energies to the energetic expulsion of what is now harbored in darkness. So what we don't want to see, what we don't want to notice about ourselves, you can be free of it in your reality. So this is why we're doing it, like to create peace on earth so that we can become galactic citizens. right there. Super, 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 super cool. Yeah. Yeah. Where was the oak tree needs to learn from the willow, one must bend. Yes, totally. I say strongly dislike. That is perfect. Yes. Linda, incredible message. I must go through at a slow pace to really take it in and move through it. I know, me too, for sure. Jean says, hey, Andy, you have to call out my willfulness so publicly. Sorry. I know, right? Totally. Totally. There's the humbling part of this message right there. So, all right. So then they go on to say, next paragraph, you can draw this from and within yourselves and hold it as energy and feel it now as something that must be recognized. Be held not with rancor, more anger and injustice, but seen as an energetic force which was drawn upon yourself. So in other words, don't be angry at yourself for having this, because that becomes more anger and injustice. But see it instead as an energetic force which was drawn upon you, right? And can now be rejected in thought form. So don't be mad at yourself. Don't be mad or angry about it. Just see it as something that wasn't divine and that doesn't belong there. The same way that you would, pick out the whatever that shouldn't be there, the pebble from the lentils, for those of you who are vegan. To draw out from yourselves that it can be rejected in thought form. So it is a thought form which has been imposed on humanity, though not of thought not of as part of humanity, but as an embrace of the victim, and to let this fall off of yourselves as an endowment not worth having. So wow, look at that. Thought not of as part of humanity, but as an embrace of the victim. So at the core of all of this energy is the idea that we are a victim. That's the core of it. Anywhere that you feel the victim, that people rise up and behave in this manner when they feel the victim. So everything comes back to our trauma and to our wounding, right? So yeah, so anger comes out of that from the stage, some place we feel put upon or repressed or something, right? It triggers a wound, and it comes from our victimhood. And Mary said, this is a super great message. There's so much in it. I'll be re-listening for sure. Yeah, me too. Me too. All right. Next paragraph. They say, perceive yourselves now elongating in the measures of your own grace, becoming more fluid, more patient, more able to open yourselves to one another. So this is how, as we're trying to move through this is the energy they want us to hold, is seeing ourselves elongating in the measure of our own grace, that our grace becomes, even I like to think of that as like we grow taller in a way, which would be great for me because I'm short, but taller, energetically, taller, more fluid, more patient, more able to open ourselves to one another, right? So we're trying to be more in a state of flow. Perceive in your hearts a readiness to yield to the needs of others. So it's that idea of softening, starting to believe that the world is plentiful, that you have everything that you need, that abundance is a reality, right? Letting go of the rigidity, of the fear, of the possessiveness, right? That keeps us separated, starting to move into this state of flow, right? Draw into yourself what is required in hardship to display the form and okay, so they say draw into yourself. This is an important sentence here. Draw into yourself what is required in hardship. So they're not saying give away the basic food that you need every day. They're not saying give away the things you need to survive. They're saying draw into yourself what is required. And in hardship, they're saying to what is required in hardship. So in difficult times, it's okay to take what you need, to have what you need. They try to display the form and forge required to make your own way. So it is necessary and expected that you will look out for yourself. They're saying even in hard times, it is necessary and expected that you will take care of yourself and look out for yourself. And they say, and to share your harmony and endowment with others. So both. They want us to do both. So that yes, it is good to take care of yourself, but also to think about others, also to think about how can I help others. But it's that idea, put your oxygen mask, make sure you have enough, but that doesn't mean hoard, right? Have what you need and then share. Make sure you're not going to be put into hardship and then share. Yeah. And then they say to make peace amongst yourselves. The energy of force, of anger, of will, of justification must be played out. Place this now in the space of readiness for what is transpiring. So, and here we go again, the list: force, anger, will, and justification, right? Big one. How do we justify ourselves and justify our feelings? right? When we are in this energy, we justify it by giving it, how did I describe it before? This beautiful word they used about like social niceties. We wrap it up in sheep's clothing and make it sound like we're doing something good, right? That we're being patriotic or whatever, when in fact we're embodying separation and hatred. Whew. And yeah, it must be played out. Place this now in the space of readiness for what is transpiring. Perceive it now as an expulsion from the body of the human heart, right? So this is the collective consciousness. Perceive it now as an energy that must play out and be exhausted. There again, they reference that word exhausted. You have to bring it down to flat, to nothing. Let it form in the ether as an endowment let go of. So you can almost perceive it like leaving your body and floating up and being returned to neutral source energy. Perceive now a drawn breath and then the exhale, and the rigidity of this now moment leaves you. So literally just like that, just exhale, let it go. Perceive this as the goal of these times passing, to reject what has been the tight embrace and the rigor of anger and hatred amongst you. Right? Like that is a doozy of a message. And I am so grateful that you guys are here holding it with me, because wow, right? Like I feel like they are bringing us into, like, each message I feel like is getting more potent. It's like these are getting deeper as we go. Man, Martha, Dawn says, what beautiful permission to let go of self-judgment. Yeah. And Mike says, and the perceived fear of loss. Yes, absolutely. The fear of loss is enormous. I'm so glad you named that, because like that's actually one of those things in psychology that they did this test, the mug test in some college somewhere, where they gave people, first they showed them this mug and they said, okay, how much would you pay for this mug? And the people said, oh, like $2. I paid $2 for that mug. And then this other group, they gave them the mugs and they had them pick. They said, here's these 2 mugs. Which one do you want? And they picked the mug that they identified most with, and they took it home and they kept that mug and they used it for a week, and it was like their mug. And then they come back to class and they said, okay, how much would you sell that mug for? Well, now that mug belongs to the person. And they all said $5, right? It just more than doubled in price because they owned it for a week. So it shows that the concept of loss, of letting something go, is much harder for us, right? That once it becomes ours, we think it has to stay ours. And so, yeah, so loss is a difficult concept for people, for humanity. It just works against us. Yeah. So anyways, and then you're saying, Linda says, that was really a doozy. It really was. Teresa says, this message is more urgent, as if soon. Yeah, I feel like they said this year, we will have a massive shift around this issue this year, that this will be like a big thing this year. And so it could be that this flash of light maybe that's the thing that's coming in the spring, is the flash of light. And then they say when that comes, that flash of light comes, they said it's the moment that changes everything. My guess is that's the thing that wraps around, and it's like that old toy that, like, you squeeze it and the eyes bulge out and the arms bulge out, right? Like that as you wrap it around and it's like love engulfs something. All that anger and hatred has to go somewhere, and it's going to creep out and poke out and rise to the surface for cleansing, right? For the acknowledgement that this was never meant to be part of us. But as that happens, they're really tasking us. We have to be ready to talk about it, to share about it, to write about it, to paint about it, to dance about it, right? How can you bring this into the collective? How can you talk about this with your friends? How can you process it for yourself, right? How can you acknowledge it in you? How can you call it out when you see it in someone else in a polite and loving way? Never in judgment, recognizing that this was imposed on us, that this is a thought form that has kept us in separation. So no one is at fault. This is not a fault thing. This is a love thing, a loving ourselves thing. Yeah, man. Yeah. All right, you guys, I thank you so much for joining me for this message. I want to remind you guys, I think I mentioned at the beginning that I'm going to be live on YouTube on Saturday, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. And if you are around and want to join me, I would love to have you join us. I'm going to be sharing, I'm going to have a few of the analysts from my Soul Convergence program are going to be joining me. And we just finished Soul Convergence on Tuesday. And so we're going to be sharing what the journey was like and what happened. And I think you guys will be fascinated. Like, if you are interested in healing and how healing works and what the journey looks like, this is going to be multiple examples of what that process was like for people. So I think it'll be a really, really interesting and fun discussion. So come on in and join us. It's going to be on my YouTube channel, which is Ann Tucker. So yeah, so I hope you guys can join us there. And I think there was something else I needed to remind you guys about. I think it, nope, I can't remember. I know. I'm going to be going, I have a big trip coming up, which I'm so excited about, you guys. I am going to Bali. I have never been to Bali. I never been to Indonesia at all. And, so we're going, and I'm going to be gone for a minute for 2 Friday lives, but I won't leave you guys. I'm going to create those videos and have them ready for you. So, so there will be Friday lives, but I won't be live in Facebook for those. I will probably be jumping in and saying hi to you guys at different times. So I will do some lives from over there just to share the fun. But I will have videos. Just know that I won't be live here in Facebook for you guys. So I'm sorry for that. It's the time difference makes it like, it's be like 2 a.m. So, but I will have the videos ready for you guys. So yeah, and I can't wait. I'm super excited to go. This is a celebration. I think I told you guys that my partner Jeff just sold his farm. And so this is our celebration trip to go. So yay, I can't wait. All right, you guys, thank you so much for sharing the message with me today. Sending you guys tons of love, and I will see you next Friday live. Bye, you guys.